Welcome everyone. We're gonna wait just a little bit to get started here. We'll start exactly at 2:30 so that we make sure that you have time for this interactive workshop. Hope everyone has been enjoying Flex Day and got some good information and insight and knowledge to take us into the new semester. My last session just ended, Derek, so I'm assuming that we're gonna have people trickling in.
Great. Juliana, you've got me very interested in what city that is, and I can't quite pick it out due to the small size of it.
It is Bogota. Bogota.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Come and visit.
Getting used to this emitting too. So if you see some coming in, Derek, and I miss them, feel free to hit emit too.
Will do.
All right, I see some new faces, some new faculty. So exciting! Welcome, welcome. And I see some old faces, some committee members. Exciting. Exciting. Well, I know that Derek has several things planned for you all within this tight 1 hour session. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump in there and introduce our guests for today. Welcome to everyone. My name is Erin Q, and I am the chair of the new faculty committee. And we are so excited that we have with us here today Dr. Derek Dubie, who's an associate professor of biology at the University of St. Joseph. This particular workshop is called New Faculty Workshop, Reimagining Education, What Inclusive Instructors Do. And so this is a combination of one, our theme for this year for the new faculty committee, which is reimagining education as we're coming back to on ground and transferring from remote learning to on ground. You know, we have the ability to be able to reimagine what education looks like this year and the years to come, right? And so we're very excited that Dr. Dubie, who is one of the authors of What Inclusive Instructors Do, for all of you who are on the call, we're going to make sure that we get your name so that you can get a copy of this book, which is sponsored by the Office of Human Resources. We're so excited that he decided to join us today and just take us through a brief piece of that textbook, but more so to engage us in this particular topic. And so to not take any more of his time, welcome Dr. Dubie, and thank you so much from the new faculty committee for joining us today. We're excited that you are here.
Thanks so much for the invite, and it's wonderful that you guys have this opportunity. Welcome to new faculty. That's always an exciting time. I'm going to go ahead and start a screen share here, and hopefully in just a moment you will see some mountains and some information about joining at slido.com/diversity. Do you guys see that? Awesome. I see some head shaking, some thumbs up. That's perfect. So kind of while I'm just saying hi and introducing myself a little bit here, if you want to take a moment either on the computer that you're on or a phone might actually be great if you have another smartphone handy. Joining this, the QR code should work if you take an image of it with your phone, but you can also just go to slido.com and then it'll ask for a join code, and that join code is diversity. You don't have to add the hashtag, it's already kind of there. So hopefully take a second or so and do that. I'll give just a little bit of background about myself. Again, I'd like to thank the new faculty committee and Dr. Q for inviting me to come chat with you today. I am from the University of St. Joseph, which is in Connecticut. My background is I grew up in Connecticut actually, but then went to Virginia for both college and for my grad program in microbiology. Did a postdoc at the University of Michigan and kind of ended up circling back towards Connecticut, where I've been for about the last 8 years. In addition to being an associate professor of biology here, I'm also the newly minted director of the first year seminar program, which is a class series that all of our first year students and generally transfer students take. That is both has a component of content, but also a large component of helping them transition to college. And, you know, with this kind of thinking about being successful in college, transitioning to college, transitioning into new courses and things like that, one of the most important things I think is, you know, being inclusive, being equitable, and things along those lines. So I'm going to also pop into the chat here for those that join us later, how to join so that you can all participate in the polls as you would like afterwards. So again, it's slido.com and diversity. Have people been able to get logged in there? A thumbs up or a head nod would help. Okay, I see at least one thumbs up, so it seems like it's working. That's fantastic. So what you'll see when you log in there, especially if you're on a mobile device, it'll take you first to a question and answer tab. It'll look somewhat like this. If you have any questions during the talk, you can definitely use the chat feature in Zoom, but you could also use this, and I can look at it when we go to our small groups later on and kind of make sure I respond to those at the end. But then there will also be a few polls as we move through the first half of today's workshop, and those will pop up automatically on whatever tab you have with the Slido. So if you have any challenges, if you have any tech issues, do just let me know in the chat, and we can hopefully get those resolved. But as Dr. Q mentioned, the title of the talk today is Reimagining Education, What Inclusive Instructors Do. And this is a screenshot over on the right of the book that I had the privilege of working with some wonderful co-authors to put together. And it was really driven, as I'll explain in a little bit, not so much by any one of our particular experiences, even as a cohort of co-authors, but rather it was driven by a survey that we did nationally of faculty and their inclusive practices, as well as the evidence-based literature. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that today, but hopefully we'll spend, you know, a good chunk of our time working and actionizing some of the ideas that we're talking about here. So if you go to wherever you're logged into Slido, as long as you didn't change your name, everything by default will be anonymous, so no worries there. But I'd love you to take a moment just so that I can get to know our cohort a little bit, and consider sharing a word or a short phrase that speaks to an aspect of your own identity or positionality, especially one that may impact your teaching. And sometimes it's hard to do this in one word. So a short phrase is fine. And you're also able to actually submit multiple times if you would like. So I'll give everyone about 30 seconds to do that. Again, if you are just joining us now, I see a few more people coming in. Welcome. I'm Derek, happy to be here. And so that you can contribute to some of our polling that we'll have throughout, just join slido.com #diversity. Oh, and it clicked over. We'll give another 30 seconds or so before we go back. You can also use the QR code itself. And this participant tab probably is in the middle of our screen share. All right, maybe take 10 more seconds if you want to get one more in. I see a few participants are typing. That might be in the Slido, so I'll let that go out. One participant typing still. if you haven't used Slido before, one of the nice things about it is that it's got a free version that allows kind of an unlimited number of participants, which is great and not common in the free online polling opportunities. It does limit to 3 polls, but it also works really nicely with PowerPoint. So if you're ever using PowerPoint slides, I don't have to leave the PowerPoint at all. All I did was add an add-in, and I don't have to leave it all, and I can show the results. So hopefully most of you have had a chance. So let's take a look at what we found out here. So what we're seeing is this generated a word cloud of what was put in by a number of individuals. What we see are, like most word clouds, the most common responses are larger words, and they tend to be centralized. So we see immigrant and woman, very common in our community today, which is fantastic. But we don't just see that. We see a number of other things. We see diversity, we see queer, we see mom, we see woman of color, entrepreneur. Academic mommy just jumped up there. Woohoo to all of our moms doing it. Gay, Asian, Black, diversity, open to learning, English language learner, telling stories and jokes, Asian, disabled, 50-plus-year-old woman. I love how we took some creativity in making the one word there. That's perfect. Fantastic. And a couple more are trickling in as we go. First gen shows up a couple of times. One thing with word clouds is not great at merging kind of closer synonyms, but that's all right. Oh, here we go. Popping out some more. So this is wonderful. And the nice thing about this is it gives me a little bit of insight into all of you that I wouldn't have known 2 minutes before this. And also it gives you a little bit as new faculty and a cohort of new faculty, a little bit to know who you're with and your cohort in there as well. Trauma survivor, I just saw. Privileged, I just saw. That's a really interesting one to add there and show some quality reflection, as do honestly most of these. So thanks for contributing to this. For sake of time, I'm going to move on at this point. And I'd like to mention, so I was invited here to talk to you guys about, diversity, inclusion, and equity. So it's only reasonable for me to provide some of my personality, my identity, my positionality, and what I could have added to that word cloud myself. So one of the things I could have said is I am white, I am male, cisgendered, I'm heterosexual, agnostic, first generation student, came from a blue collar family, I'm a father and a husband, and many other single words or short phrases that are part of my identity and positionality. And what I love is that you guys all responded with many of those things. And if you remember back to the prompt, it was things that could impact your teaching, right? And all of these, and literally anything I could put about my identity and positionality, I firmly believe, impacts my teaching, because it's the lens through which I view the world and that my teaching occurs. And with that said, if you look at this list, there are several things that in kind of the mass American society would put me very much in a majority. White, cisgendered, heterosexual, male. And for some, it might be, why then is this individual coming to talk to us about diversity, inclusion, and equity and things like that? And that's very reasonable. One of the things that I would say is, in my opinion, all of the voices around this are important. Part of the reason why I have been so focused on not just trying to be inclusive in my own teaching and equitable in my own teaching, but also to collaborate with others on the book, to publish articles, to do research studies, is because I firmly believe that people like my younger self need these sorts of resources. And that all views are valuable here. So in no way today am I going to be here telling you how to be inclusive. Really, my goal for the day is just to share some ideas, provide my experience, and and give a little insight into the work that we did around creating the book. It was driven by a national study of faculty and what their inclusive practices were. And so we learned from that, and those drive the book a lot, and we'll drive a little bit of our workshop today. And again, evidence-based research as well. Like I said, while some of these put me in many majorities in certain communities, others of these I feel, you know, very much in a minority or other. I grew up in a very Catholic town in Connecticut. I married into a Catholic family. I am at a Catholic institution, private institution, but I am agnostic, and that can be a bit interesting as well. So, you know, no one word makes anybody's identity. Even this list, there's so much more to me. There's so much more to you guys. And that's important because there's also that much more to our students. Again, if anybody ever wants to chime in today, feel free to use the chat. Feel free to raise a hand. If I see it, I'll let you in. We'll have a lot of time to kind of small group work and chat as we go. But again, the reason why I was invited to talk to you today is really about kind of what I'm terming the big three of the day, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I know for myself, when I started teaching, I had gone through a PhD program in the sciences. I had gone through a postdoc in the sciences. I had sought out opportunities to get some training in education, to get some training, to get some experience teaching in the classroom. But when I went through all of this, there honestly wasn't that much talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the training was nearly non-existent. So it's wonderful that you guys have this kind of right as you're joining this new role, whatever it is, whether you've been teaching for years or decades, or whether you're newly minted faculty, that you're thinking about these things and talking about these things. I think that's a huge benefit. So, you know, these big three are not the same as the big three of This Is Us. If you watch the Pearsons called themselves the big three. But interestingly, as I wrote the title and then thought of that connection, there actually were some of these concepts and ideas and themes in that show that were addressed in kind of interesting ways, but not where I generated the title here. So let's talk about our big three: diversity, equity, and inclusion. Ask 3 different people and you'll probably get 3 slightly different definitions for all of these terms. And that's okay, but I wanted to operationalize them a little bit for you about how I'm thinking about them. And I encourage you to think about these and talk about them when we get into our small groups in a bit as well. For diversity, I'm kind of framing this as any differences between individuals, whether they're visible or invisible. And they include many of the things that popped up on that word cloud: personal experience, race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, religious beliefs, socioeconomical status, political views, all of these things and many more. When we think about equity, we're thinking about providing all individuals with the resources they need to have an equal chance to succeed, or, you know, the personal background not affecting, not being a reason why someone can or cannot succeed in the classroom to the same degree. And then inclusion, I really think of inclusion as kind of welcoming all individuals. I think welcoming is a very big part. Creating and cultivating an environment of respect within the learning community for a diversity of individuals, experiences, and perspectives. And another big component is the ability and an opportunity for members of that community to feel like they belong there. And so those are kind of, you know, the way that I'm thinking about these terms as I use them today. And again, there are other definitions out there that are equally valid, but I wanted you to know kind of where I was thinking and where I was coming from. So with that in mind, I'd love to get another poll so that we can kind of learn about our learning community here. On Slido, again, if you go back to wherever you were responding and go to the poll section again, you should see this question asking, how much do you consider and incorporate concepts of equity and inclusion in your own teaching? And if you maybe haven't had much teaching experience yet, feel free to respond to this as how you anticipated it based on kind of coming into your role. And if you weren't here in the beginning, you can still join by either following the QR code so that you can respond, or going to slido.com and using diversity as the code. And I see that people are responding. I'll give another, I see that we've got about 11, 12 responses so far. I think we have about 33 participants today. So I'll wait a little bit more so that hopefully those that maybe hadn't signed in can get signed in and everyone can share. Do know again that these come across totally anonymously and will be shared in aggregate. So feel free to be honest and open about where it falls for you. We've had about 14 responses. If anybody again is having any issues joining, feel free to let me know and we can try to get that sorted out. 17. I'll give maybe 10 more seconds, and those that wish to respond can during that, and then we'll see where we fall. Okay, thank you for those that responded. And so here are those results. So, and you can keep responding as you go and it will adjust as you see, which is again, another nice feature of Slido. What I'm loving seeing here is that out of all their 18 respondents, none selected never, which is great. That this is something that is at least on your radar. The most common answer is commonly. And that's actually where I responded as well. I commonly think about these things. I would love to put always. I want to put always. I strive for putting always. But if I'm being honest with myself, there are some days where in biology, we have all this content that we need to get through, and that gets in the way. And that becomes my focus, and I lose touch a little bit. And that's okay, to not be perfect is all right. You need to give yourself the grace to not be perfect sometimes. But what I love here is that we see a lot of you thinking about these things. Some of you really top of your mind, always 28%. That's wonderful. Almost 2/3 commonly, and 6% that are at least occasionally thinking about this. So again, kind of a little bit of background about me and why I'm here talking with you today. In quotes here is the my, because I don't take any of this work independently. I don't think that would do it justice. We very intentionally, I have had the privilege of working with a great group of co-authors on the book and on many of the other publications and studies that we've done. Dr. Tracy Addy and Dr. Khadijah Mitchell are both at Lafayette College, which is in Pennsylvania. Dr. Addy is their Associate Dean of Teaching and Learning. Dr. Mitchell is an assistant professor also in biology, interestingly. Dr. Mallory Sorrell is a professor in public policy at Duke University, which is in North Carolina, and myself, associate professor of biology in Connecticut at the University of St. Joseph. So it's been about a year since we published our book, which you guys will all be getting a copy of. The hope when we created that book was to share it as a resource, not a chore. You don't have to read it from cover to cover if that isn't what works for you. There's reflection questions, there's appendixes with tools that you can use. And then again, it's really driven by a lot of the work and what we've heard from others, sprinkling in our own experiences. We've also been involved in some other chapters, some other studies, mostly as a team. And it's been a really powerful collaboration and been a great opportunity for us to share our perspectives with each other and grow as well. I feel like I've grown so much doing work on this, and it's really impacted my teaching in a beneficial way. So if this is something you're passionate about, it's great to do it in your classroom, but also don't be afraid to think of it as a scholarly pursuit and to share out with your colleagues locally, but also nationally as well. So with thinking about diversity and inclusion, one other thing that I'm interested in hearing from you before I get into some of the strategies and practices and principles is what barriers or challenge have or do you face to implementing inclusive teaching? What have you seen that's made it harder for you to be inclusive in your class? So this one might take a skosh more writing, so I'll give maybe a full minute or two for you guys to think about it and respond in a short phrase. It doesn't have to be a full paragraph. If one word will do it, that's great. If you need a sentence, do a sentence. If you need two, go with that. Great. I see a number of people typing and adding their ideas and their thoughts. 12 responses already, a couple more look like they're underway. I appreciate your willingness to share if you're sharing. I also appreciate if you don't feel like sharing in this instance. That's totally fine as well. Give maybe 30 more seconds because I do see a couple people still typing. And again, even when we do move over to the results screen, if you're still typing, you can still finish that and send. All right. So let's see what some people have said. Oh, so a big one is actually one that I also put in, time. Yeah, I will say that being inclusive and equitable, it does take intention, it does take caring, it does take time. And if I imagine you guys are all very much like me, even though on another coast, and that time is not something we have a lot, because even those that weren't falling into this, I see time to revise courses, time limits during class, too much content to cover, class time, too much required material to cover. Time is definitely an issue. Hopefully some of the practices and strategies that I can give you today or point you in the direction of will not be so time intensive that that's as much of a barrier. I also see some other things like understanding. I see understanding here, understanding what inclusion is. And I saw some others that were kind of similar to that as well. Yeah, so hopefully trainings and using colleagues and things like that can be things that help that. Students of privilege always answer first and demand my attention. Yeah, that can certainly be a challenge. Students' lack of community with each other. My own mental health, confidence in doing it. I'll speak from my own stance. You know, again, as a white straight male, you know, I haven't been in the shoes of any of my students, nonetheless, those that come from very different backgrounds of me. And the same is true really for any instructor in any role. So, you know, having that confidence to do it, I see offensive. Maybe that means kind of being worried about being offensive. Sometimes it's easier to not address it than to be concerned about saying the wrong thing. Neurodiversity, absolutely. Assessments, other issues, language barriers. All of these are things that can make being as inclusive and equitable as we may want a challenge. So with these in mind, and others, I'm hoping to give you a few principles and practices today for how I think about inclusive teaching and equitable teaching, but more than that, my group of co-authors, national faculty, over 300 to 400 responded to our survey, how they think about it, and let that kind of drive what we're doing today and some practices that maybe you can use. The big idea here is you're going to hear a lot of strategies, a lot of practices. You don't have to do all of them. You don't have to do any of them. You want to think about what's right for you. But really what I would love, and what we'll workshop a little bit later on, is if as a group, each individual can maybe come away with one thing, just one new thing they're going to add to a course or to a plan of study that might help make things a little more inclusive, a little more equitable. So don't get overwhelmed. No one person, I'm not doing all of the things that I say here, right? It's pick and choose what feels right and what's going to work best with your cohort. So I'm going to break it down in kind of 4 principles in how we think about it. So principle 1 is that the mindset matters. And each of these slides, when I bring up a new principle, I'll show a quote from our National Survey of Instructors. And one that kind of fit this principle was a full professor from media studies and communication who said, inclusive teaching is learning-centered teaching that gives all students a voice and makes them feel like they belong and are respected as individuals and members of groups. So to me, what this is showing is that this faculty, this instructor, is going in with a mindset to be equitable and to be inclusive. And that is a huge first step. That is probably the most important thing. Thinking about it, caring about it is really, in a lot of ways, what matters most. So look at learning as student-centered, move from sage on a stage kind of situations where it's all about the teacher, and center on your students and your learners and what they should get out of it. Appreciating and acknowledging diversity in the classroom directly, and noting it as an asset and not any sort of deficit. We are all stronger because we are different than we would be if we were all the same. So directly doing that in your classroom and within your own mindset matters. Approaching teaching with a growth mindset for your students, of course, that they're not going to be perfect. That's why they're taking the course. And it's okay to fail, and giving them opportunities to fail forward, but also giving yourself that same mindset and that same ability to, I'm going to try something here, and letting your students in on that. Here's my goals for being inclusive and being equitable, and I'm going to, be trying my hardest to do that. But let me know if things aren't working, and we can be flexible enough to grow and to better ourselves as well. And to really take ownership of your learning community, and fostering that inclusive environment within it. To know that you do have power to help make an equitable situation, to help make a classroom more inclusive for all. The second principle, and this is one that I've kind of focused a lot of my own work on in our cohort as well of co-authors, is that no 2 classes are alike. So even if I taught genetics this semester and last semester and the semester before and the semester before, all to my USJ students, none of those are the same. And to best help my students learn, which is the focus of the course, I need to know who my students are. And it's wonderful to build relationships with these students over the course of a class, and to get to know them and to build trust and build relationships, and be able to apply that. But it's hard to apply if you're doing that all that work throughout the semester. You get to the end of the semester and you're like, I know all my students. I would have taught differently had I known that information at the beginning of class. So again, a quote from our national survey, and how they think about learning their students. They go about this by generating activities throughout the semester to find out more about their student audience, their career interests, their misconceptions about different topics, how their cultural and geographical and generational experiences inform their interests, perceptions of future career goals, and self-evaluation. And you might see this and be like, well, I don't have that time in class, right? I'm so limited in time in class. These don't have to be activities that are all of their own about this, but there are maybe opportunities where you're learning about something in your class, and you can tie in how these individuals, how it connects to their career interests, or misconceptions that they've had in the past, or that their community outside of school has had, how they're informed by this. So it doesn't have to always be an entire extra activity or time. One of the things that we created as co-authors, and is in the book and is also in a published study, is what's known as the Who's in Class form. And this was really created to get to that point of, it would be so much more helpful if I knew certain aspects about my student learning community at the beginning of the semester rather than throughout or at the end. So the Who's in Class form has a few really important criteria. First of all, it's totally voluntary. Students only respond if they want to, and they only respond to what they want to within it. It's totally anonymous, and also an aggregated form. So the data the instructor gets back, they don't know who said what. You just learn about your students as a group that you can then possibly use. And this makes it more of a safe space for students to share. That's the idea here. We want to respect their privacy. We want to respect their opportunity to share anonymously and at their choosing. It's implemented at the beginning of the semester. I started implementing this 2 years ago, and I will be doing it again on Monday when our classes start up here at USJ. You can do it day one. You can do it day -1 beforehand. But you can also do it a week in or 2 weeks in. It's never too late to try and be inclusive, but the earlier the better is the intention of the form. And I'll show you a little bit more about this in a minute. Caitlin Walsh is my Teaching and Learning Center director here at USJ. You could contact her, you could contact me, or I'll show you another link to get some access to this if it's something you would like to do in your class in just a minute. But then don't just stop at the beginning of class, but try and acquire student feedback throughout the semester by short quarterly or mid-semester surveys, making your office hours available. And one thing that I really like is having a continuous feedback Dropbox, whether it's a digital anonymous way for students to give feedback, or whether it's a physical box. I had it, it's not here right now, but I literally had a box that I brought into class and said, if anybody wants to put in a note at the end of class or during class that they want me to know, you can add your name to it. If you'd like me to know that you said it, you cannot. Feel free to do so. And then I can just, again, see how things are going for my student population throughout and kind of adjust and adapt as we go. So that who's in class form, there's a link in the slides, which I think will be shared with you if they haven't been already, to the article that this can be found in, and you can download the form itself. This is an example of just a few of the questions that are there. There's more, there's probably about 20 questions. It probably takes students about 5 or 10 minutes to answer. But it asks questions like, yes or no, I work on or off campus, and what number of hours do I work? And this can be really important because if you find out all your students are working 20, 30 hours a week, you might need to think about your deadlines and how you're assigning activities and out of class work and things like that. If you find out that there's less, maybe there's also opportunities for them to respond about other obligations they might have. If they care for dependents or family members, if they, are on an athletics team, or other time obligations they may have. There's other aspects like, do they have a laptop or desktop computer that they can do classwork in? And when the answer is no, again, that might change how you think about the activities and assignments you do in and out of class. I'm financially capable of purchasing the materials for the class without hardship. That without hardship is an important part because some students will feel they need to purchase the textbook and do so at great hardship to themselves. So understanding whether, having that text that's $100 or more is something that's really reasonable for your class, or whether you can find maybe open access resources to use. In my classes, wherever possible, I've shifted to more open access, but in different fields that may or may not be as appropriate. First generation student, what their expectations for inclusivity are, and others. And I won't spend too much time on the data, but we did actually pilot a study of this form, and the big takeaways were that on the left, 80 to 90% or more of the faculty that implemented it found it beneficial, would recommend it to others, implement it in their classroom, and help them modify their instruction to be more inclusive. And that's a great thing. Even if this was just like, 1%, but it's 80% of faculty that use this form were able to modify their instruction in that very class to make it more inclusive and equitable. And that's really exciting to see. But it doesn't just matter what the faculty think. What do the students think? And what we see here is that over 80% of the students felt comfortable providing information on the form, felt like it was a safe venue, would like their other instructors to use it. And this one I really like. Again, it provided them an opportunity to share anonymous information that they would not have been able to in their courses otherwise. So that means the instructor's learning something that they would not have before without this. So it's a great opportunity. In addition to kind of the data that an instructor gets from here to help them modify their teaching, one of the best aspects of it that I've found in my implementation is it's a great avenue for me to initiate the conversation on inclusivity and diversity and to let my students know I care. and to let them know I'm not teaching the same microbiology course that I taught last year and the year before and the year before and the year before. This is a class for us. This is a class for all of us. And I care who we are, who you are. So that's been really useful for me. Again, if you're interested in this, you can reach out to me. You can also find the form and modify the form as fits for your class through the link that's on the slide that will be shared with you. Principle 3 is it's important to build, maintain, and when necessary, reestablish a welcoming environment. An instructor said, I've rewritten my syllabus to be more inclusive, including a section on how to get help, a section on what office hours mean, instead of just saying office hours and the time, and in general have demystified many aspects of our syllabus. The syllabus is very commonly the first thing that many of our students will see, and they'll go back to it. And it doesn't have to just be a contract of all the course policies. It can be so much more than that. And to many students, especially first generation students, it can be very confusing. They may have never had a syllabus in high school or before this and not know how to approach that. So thinking about your syllabus can be really beneficial, and creating one that's more than just a contract. It has all the information on policies and expectations and grading and stuff like that, but it's more than that. And I'll give an example of that in just a second. In class, set a positive and welcoming tone on the first day. Take time. It's hard to take time in class, but take that first day for introductions and transparency on being inclusive and why that matters in the course and the benefits that the course will have and each student will have by it being inclusive and equitable. Also sending out, welcome emails in advance of class can be a great thing. I heard somebody today, another faculty colleague, say that they send out a welcome video. They record a video of themselves welcoming students to class. That sounds like a great way to introduce yourself even before class starts. And then if issues do arise, don't just push them off, don't ignore them, but deal with them promptly and appropriately, and use the situations as learning opportunities. Again, giving yourself the ability to not be perfect and having your students know that you have these goals, you're working your hardest, but that, if things come up, you want to have that dialogue. It allows you to kind of reestablish a welcoming environment if issues do arrive between students or otherwise. And this is just an example of a syllabus for a course that I'm teaching this fall. It's a first-year seminar course, so it's all first-year students. It's called Life on Mars. It ties David Bowie in with the space race, with alien life, and seeks to figure out what it means to be human. It's a very weird course. But you see, I start with a picture rather than jumping directly into, your grades are so-so, the attendance is so-and-so, and then it's a course welcome. Welcome to USJ as a first-year student. You're enrolled here, what to expect. It's going to be a weird course, maybe the oddest you take in your career, but hopefully not. I'm technically a biology faculty, but the course will only minimally be biology. And then I add things about other aspects that don't show up maybe in a normal syllabus, but really matter to me in the classroom. Fostering an inclusive and equitable classroom, right from the beginning, they know this. The first thing on the syllabus. Everyone in the course is valuable and brings assets to our learning, and having that growth mindset. They're right here up front in the syllabus. Really, again, setting that foundation for inclusivity and equity. And then the fourth principle and last principle before we move into some small group workshopping are that pedagogical decisions can enhance inclusivity and equity. So how you teach can matter in terms of how inclusive it is and how equitable. This instructor said, I use too many to name them all, but some of my favorites are allowing multiple revisions on essay assignments and only counting the highest grade, choosing readings from a wide variety of contributors, diverse contributors, going beyond the canon, and reasons why certain perspectives are less available. I have to do this a lot with microbiology because the history is a bunch of white males were the ones allowed to do the work, to contribute, trained to do the work. So why are there all fathers of microbiology? Where are the mothers? Where are the diverse faces? And we look for opportunities to incorporate those where possible, but we also have to describe the history that's there. Creating multiple opportunities to demonstrate knowledge, oral participation, readings, writings, things like that. And this was somebody from English. And to the practices you can do to kind of get at this principle, again, use diverse contributors from the field wherever possible, or talk about why they're not there if they're not. implement aspects of universal design for learning. And there's a great website here that you can go to think about a little bit of that stuff and learn some of those strategies. I'll show a little bit more in a second. Actually, I probably won't due to time, but that website can be great. And then employing teaching methods that have evidence of promoting success for all students and reducing achievement gaps, whether that's achievement gaps between high and low income, different ethnicities or races, or other kind of groups that you may be having. Active learning, problem-based learning, debates, case studies, think, pair, share, serious gaming, all of those have evidence of reducing achievement gaps and supporting the growth and learning of all. Using live polling, Slido, or Poll Everywhere, or whatever system you like, Nearpod, are all ones that can enhance participation and allow people to do so in a safe way, anonymously, and use of multiple modalities within a course. And then finally, thinking about assessments and using them not only as a means to a grade, but as a formative learning tool themselves. Again, that gets kind of what this instructor was saying as well, leaving multiple chances, fail forward. I have exams in my micro course. There's 3 exams during the semester, a final exam that's comprehensive. The lowest exam grade can get replaced with a final exam if the grade that's better, if they do better, because they've shown that growth that we're looking for in the course. So those are the 4 principles and some practices that you could potentially think about implementing or implementing your own. But where do we go from here? So the remainder of our session, which is only going to be about 10 to 15 minutes, are breakout sessions. And what I'd like you to do is think about how to use this time best. I'll probably have about 10 minutes each in the breakout groups, and then we'll come back at around 6:25. But I'd like you to think about one of those principles, and I can show those again, that resonates most with you and your teaching with your group members. I'm going to put you into groups of randomly about 3 to 4, maybe 5. And then try and brainstorm one specific practice. You can do this individually or as a group that you'll implement this semester to enhance equity and inclusion. If you already have some you're using, share those out. That's fine too. And then we'll come back together with about 5 minutes left in class. I'd love to have a couple of you guys share what you talked about in your small groups. And then we'll wrap up the session and get you on to either finishing up your day or whatever your next steps are. So in just a second, let me go ahead and get these breakout groups going. So we have 25 guests. So I will do 6 groups or so, and I'm going to have it just automatically assign you to a room. And I am going to open those now, and I'll pull you back in 10 minutes at 6:25. I'm going to leave this screen open. Hopefully you'll still be able to see it. But if not, you're thinking about a principle that resonates and really one thing that you could do this semester to enhance equity and inclusion. See you guys in 10. Looks like most of you have been able to join a room, but if you haven't yet, feel free, I can move you into one.
Sorry, Derek, were you trying to say something to me?
Oh, no, nope. We are just in the breakout rooms at this current time.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Sorry, I got kicked out.
Oh, no worries. Everything's great. Welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you for rejoining. I think we still have a few that are deep in their conversations that'll join us in the next 20 seconds, I think, whether they choose to or not. the way that Zoom works? Fantastic. So we only have a couple minutes left. I'll give 7 more seconds before Zoom brings everybody back. Great. And hello, welcome back, everyone. So we only have a couple minutes left, and we need to save a minute or so at the end. So maybe just take 2 or 3 minutes here. I'd love to hear some of what you guys were talking about and what you were thinking about in your group rooms. You could share a principle that resonated with you, a practice, either one that was given or one that you came up with that you might try to use, or something you've used in the past that's been great. You can go ahead and put up a hand if you're willing to share. I'd love to hear it. See what you got. Or even just turn on your mic, because it doesn't seem like a rush at the moment.
I can start.
Thank you.
I'll lower my hand now.
I
My name is
appreciate it.
Iris, and I had a lovely group of people together. One thing I think that resonated as an undercurrent of what was shared is that there is intentionality around the pressure students feel.
Yeah.
So even if we were really talking about a specific pedagogical decision, like around quizzes, it was all about how do we release the pressure so students can focus on actual learning of actual skills and projects and connecting to each other. So that's one takeaway that I had from our group.
That's fantastic. Yeah, thanks for the share. And I mean, I think ways of thinking about, again, embedding that growth mindset can help, because and the ability to fail forward and opportunities for that sort of thing can sometimes dissolve a little bit of that pressure and maybe, again, help the students appreciate that. That's great. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Love to hear from 1 or 2 more. Yeah, Susan.
Hi, yeah, in our group, the one that really resonated with us was that it's important to build, maintain, and when necessary, reestablish a welcoming environment. I'm in the nursing department, and the other person in my group was in the cosmetology department. And it was amazing how much diversity we have in each one. But I think the most important thing that resonated with us is to feel that you have a safe environment, because if you're guarding yourself or you're afraid, then that's all that comes forward. And so that's what I'm really going to do. Is I really like the caveat that you had in there about explaining what office hours were. And I'm going to explain, it's a chance to just drop by. It's a chance to just talk with me. It doesn't necessarily always have to be about the class. And then the other one was to, in that environment, is to, part of it is going to be to make sure they know that button to press to get into all the student services that are available, because there's so many neat stuff. So I mean, that's what we went through. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for sharing. Yeah, that's wonderful. And I very much appreciate those thoughts. Yeah, and Chris, maybe this will be our last just due to time, but Chris, go ahead.
So we started talking about the principle 2, no classes are alike. And 2 of us in the group both teach anatomy, and started talking about, well, we got all this content that's the same all the time. And in that purpose, they are all alike. And then realizing, well, the last 6 semesters, every freaking semester has been different because of COVID and the progression that we're going through. And if we're online, offline, and how our students are responding to that, and how we have to change and respond to what our students' needs are.
Yeah.
And that morphed into this beautiful conversation that I can't thank you enough for getting us together, because the third person was an academic counselor. And we got talking about student needs coming into the course and prerequisites, and are the students ready for our courses, and how we really are going to start having some interdepartmental conversations with counseling and anatomy to say, how can we make our students succeed, not just to pass the course with a C, because that's a death of grades for someone going to a nursing school, but how to get them to pass with an A or a B so they're prepared. And so it's a kickoff of a bunch of great conversations that I see. And
that's outstanding.
that.
Glad to hear. And thank you so much for the share. And that brings up a great point. I cannot stress as much collaboration. Everybody in this room is a resource for you to learn from. About how to be inclusive, about how to help your students. And collaboration is really what makes all of these things work across departments, across institutions, just across people, across faculty to student, student to faculty, staff to faculty, faculty to staff, all of those things is really what kind of makes this wheel turn. So thank you all for your willingness to share, your willingness to engage. I don't want to take any more time because I know that you guys have places to be, and I want to turn it back over to Dr. Q. And I wish you all the best with an inclusive fall semester and future. Feel free to reach out to me at any time. ddube@usj.edu is my email address. Dr. Q can share it, and I'm happy to continue the conversation with any of you. 10 minutes isn't enough to have these, so hopefully you take them forward with you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Dube. I think Chris said it best. You know, we appreciate you starting these conversations. I hope that each of you took a little piece that you can take into this new semester with you, some points, some skills. And we just, again, thank you so much for starting off the semester with us. For all our new faculty in the room, please look out for an email from the new faculty committee about the new faculty institute and an opportunity to receive your welcome basket. This was the first event, a part of the new faculty institute, but there will be many, many more. So we look forward to seeing you and wishing everyone a great semester. Thank you.
All. Have a great one. It's been a pleasure. And again, please email if you want to try it. I love making cross-country connections. So
make sure and you're sharing your presentation, so I can also share that as well.
yeah, I think I sent it, but I can resend it right now too, just so that you have it.
Okay.
Perfect.
Derek, can you add the Slido summaries when you?
Yeah.
So that was kind of helpful to kind of see what backgrounds and what questions people had.
Yeah,
In terms of those responses.
perfect. Yeah, let me look into that. Thank you so much. That's a great idea.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Thank you so much.
Bravo.
Mhm. You.